Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we are going to look at the concepts of if statements and if-else and if-Else statements, which we already covered in the slides. Before we start, there is one quick concept that I would like to touch upon, and that is, let's say you open a blank project in the Visual Studio. If you do that, what you will actually get is something which is completely blank, so it will not have the hello world template program. So if you want to start writing programs in this sort of setup, what you need to go is you need to go to your source files. You need to right click, then click add, go to add, click new item, and in this new item you will actually have multiple options. You can add a C++ file, a header file, or C++ class. Now we're not writing a header file at this time. The C++ class is something which is related to C++ programming, so it's not used in C, so we don't need that. So we just need to add this CPP or C++ file. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, let me rename this to the same name as our project, which is If-Else. Okay, it's maybe hanging on to a file that I had from a previous time. Right, so I was getting that issue because I had an older file by the same name, so I've gone ahead and deleted that. So I'm going to now add my new item again, so C++ file, and then what am I going to call it? I'm going to call it If-Else. Okay, so now you get a C file, and you can start writing your program. So you don't have any sample code, so you have to write it from scratch. So the first thing we need to do is to include the header files that we will be using, and then write the main function. So let's just quickly write to see that this works. And there you are, hello world. Okay, so basically what we want to do is to play around with the if statements and if-else and similar logical statements or conditional statements. So let's do that. Let's first define an integer a. Let's give it a value of 80, and if this integer a is greater than equal to 60, then we want our program to print past, and then go to the next line. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this, and you see that yay, you passed. If we change the value to something less than 60, maybe call it 59, then our program doesn't do anything, so does nothing. Okay, but if you wanted to do something, so we wanted to say print false or print failed when the grade is less than 60, then we can put that inside an else statement or the block of an else statement. So we can do that. So let's say print f failed, and then this program should do something about it. So let's go and see what it does. So now it prints failed, right? Because a was set to 59. If a has a value which is greater than or equal to 60, let's say a is 80, then we go ahead and print it. What we should see is passed. So this program has now passed. Okay. Another thing that I want to demonstrate or illustrate quickly is the conditional operator. So if you recall from the slides, we had statement like this, which was a greater than equal to 60. If this is satisfied, we wanted to print string or put string passed. If it was false, we want to print failed. So let's run this. Now you should see passed twice. Notice that you don't need to put a \n in the put s function, because it does that by default. If you do that, you'll actually see that it prints 2 lines at the end. So let's see. So compare that to last time, you actually see that you skip 2 lines and then your program stops. So you generally don't need to do that within the put s function. We also saw that there was a simpler version of, or more user-friendly version of the conditional operator, which was if a is greater than equal to 60, we put that inside the puts. Passed. If it's false, we add puts or print failed. And now we should get pass or fail 3 times. All right, so passed, passed, passed. If we make this to maybe less than 60, we actually see this printed failed printed 3 times. So if you have very short statements that you want to execute, and it's like an if-else, the logic is exactly the same as an if-else, then you can use the conditional operator to put everything in one line. So that makes it a bit more compact as far as the lines are concerned. Now the next thing that we want to do is illustrate multiple if-else statements. So we wanted to print the exact grade. So if a is greater than equal to 90, then we want to print a else. Now what I'm going to do next is put if blocks inside else blocks. So we're going to nest if else blocks. So let's get rid of this, put an if else. So if in here, so if grade is not greater than 90 but it's greater than equal to 80, then I'm going to print B, and then within this if block, I'm going to write greater than equal to 70. I'm going to write print F C. Put this inside here. What is it saying? It doesn't seem to be. So what I basically need to do is copy these if-else statement and paste if-else statements inside the else block of my first if-else statement. So if A is greater than equal to 80, then print B. Similarly, if A is greater than equal to 70, then print C. Otherwise, if is greater than equal to 60, print D, and finally in the last else block, print failed. Okay, and then I need to make sure that I close all the else blocks with curly braces, and that should be it. Okay, so I closed everything. So let's go ahead and run this program, and you can already see that we have, before we run this, one of the issues with this is it's not very readable. You can it's easy to get lost in these curly braces and easy to forget which block you're in. So that's why we generally do not use this and prefer another form. So we were starting off with A was 50, so yes, the student failed. Let's look at a good student, so maybe give it 90. You can see that it prints A. If we give it 85, it should print B. So if we give it 85, it checks that it's greater than equal to 90, so it's not. It comes in here, is it greater than equal to 80? It is. So it comes in here and it prints B, and then it just exits the if-else blocks. Maybe try one more value. So let's look at 75, and it should print C, and it does. We've already seen that it prints fail. So one more thing, maybe let's try to put a breakpoint here, which we place by pressing the F9 button, and well, maybe let's put one here, so it kind of walks us through the whole program. So let's run this. So our program comes here, it stops at this point, it checks the value of a. Is it greater than 90? No, it's not greater than equal to 90, so it skips the body of the first if. Then it checks, is it greater than equal to 80? Well, a is 75, so it skips that too. Then it says, okay, is it greater than equal to 70? It is, so it goes in, it prints C, and then after that, once you press F10, so once it's gone into one of the if statements and the condition is satisfied, it skips the next two. So it skips this one, it skips this one, and it comes down to the end. So the next statement after the if-else-if-else blocks, which is down here. So let's look at the screen quickly. So it printed C, and that's it. So now we can end our program, and that's what we see. Okay. But as you can see, the problem with this is you get a lot of indentation, and this is not very readable. In fact, this can also be difficult to write at times. So what we generally prefer to do instead of this is to use the else if block, which goes something like is greater than equal to 80, and so let's just get rid of these for a second. Maybe write this as B. Okay, the parentheses here, and then maybe I can just copy this. Check for 70, and then check for 60, and then finally in one last else block I can print F. Failed. Okay, now this is much more simpler to read, easier to follow, looks better, easier to write as well. So let's look at this and see if it works. Well, it printed C, which is what we should have printed. We can try a couple more values. Let's give somebody 99. Really good student gets A. Maybe another student has 89, should get a B. They do. Student with 60 should get a D. Okay, and then student less than 60 should fail. And there you go. So much better way of writing if-else statement. In fact, that's the one that people generally tend to use more frequently. You can use the indented if-else blocks inside else blocks. So if-else, 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 and keep going in that fashion if that's what you like to do, but generally people prefer this way.